think we got nothing but the best. Would you give the band a round of applause? Would you give the band a round of applause? Would you give the band a round? And 4 beautiful sisters doing some beautiful chorus work for us. We call them the Review Angels. Give them a round of applause. Give them a round. Listen, you know, it's my biggest problem. My biggest problem is my fans and them. Last year, they come knocking down my door. Black Stallion, Black Stallion. I said, well, what happened? They said, listen this. You know, all them other singers just sit down and write a little smut now and then. You mean you can't write one for me? I said, all right. I can write this smut for them. I sit down, I take up my pen, and I take up my paper. I start to write my smut. Play the thing, play. 1983, my fans beg for a favor. I decide to help them, so I write this soca. Last year they come back with a different story. They say they want something smutty about Gino Dorothy. Now, on my fans, you know your future depend. So I sit down to write this smut only to please them. But as I take up my pen and my piece of paper, and I write out the first verse, listen what I remember. Oil money come, oil money go. Poor people remain on the pavement and ghetto. When Mr. Divider start to divide the bread equally, I go in and finish the whole damn calypso about Dorothy. How I jam she, how she jam me. How we back, spread and we roll back. But once my people keep fighting for equal share of the cake, wait Dorothy, wait Dorothy, I take up the challenge just to prove to the lot. I decide to show them I could write a smut about this Dorothy woman who come down to the island and we happening with Bachi when we come out the steel band. Look, I done hire 2 girls to put on some short thing. Was to come on stage and show how Dorothy whining. But it's a wrong thing I doing. So when I strike up the first note, suppose Jaja punish me with a stroke in my one throat. Because the Ku Klux Klan office still Alabama, and in Brixton, England, my people still under pressure. Anytime I see that South Africans are free, I go in and finish the whole damn calypso about Dorothy. Oh, I jam she, and she jam me. Oh, we back, and we roll back. But once my people keep fighting with so much children life at stake, we Dorothy, passing to London, and you're sure to hear it. They just call calypso music, rum music. They say all entertainer today using the culture to help the people plan a better future. In this world today of nuclear and revolution, the calypso man still singing about rum and woman. But I'm just making sure that when they run in the big mouth, it's the Black Stallion music that they talking about. Because them politicians still can't form a federation. So much meat in the hole in Caribbean people still suffering. Anytime I see a true West Indian unity, yes, I go in and finish the whole damn calypso about Dorothy. Oh, she jam me, and I jam she. Oh, we back, and we roll back. But once my people suffering with so much children life at stake, For verse and chorus is too much of lyrics. So sit down and write smart in this moment of crisis. My head saying yes, but my heart saying no. And I just follow my heart when it comes to writing Kaiso. Now to all my fans who want smart, I'm very sorry. But my pleasure does always come second to my duty. And my duty is to make sure that the people life happy. And anytime that thing happen, we go jam down Dorothy. Because so much of famine in Ethiopia, assassination, I say going on in India. Anytime I don't have to live with them frightful things around me, yes, I go in and finish the whole damn Calypso ball, Dorothy. Oh, I jam she, and she jam me. Oh, we back, and we roll back. But once my people suffering for an equal share of the cake. Wait, Dorothy, wait, Dorothy, wait.
Wait, Dorothy, wait, Dorothy, wait. Good evening to all of you, one of our favorite Calypsonians, the black man himself, Black Stallion. Wait, Dorothy, wait, wait. We gonna back and we gonna back ball. But wait. I'll money come and I'll money go. And poor people still living in the ghetto. When Mr. Divider start dividing the bread equally, it's then we gonna back ball with Dorothy. Until then, wait, Dorothy, wait. What you call a classic Calypso. A classic Calypso. Good evening to all of you. It's budget day. Mr. Divider is in the Parliament, the National Assembly right now, telling us how he gonna divide the bread. And I rather suspect when all is said and done, poor people will still be in the ghetto. So for now, wait, Dorothy, wait. Good evening to you, wherever you join us from on a Friday evening. Friday is traditional. It's traditional. Friday is payday. Friday is payday. Friday it still is. Dr. Adams is here, and I used to Friday. Small boy, you come into politics and thing, and you gone up to Linden WPA meeting and thing. Or Friday afternoon, lad, bright. Saturday morning is market day. Yeah. So everybody has an interest in Friday night. Well, we have made Friday night our night of reckoning here on Politics One. One, it's budget. I understand the budget is still reading and trying to get how much money in the budget. They ain't tell me that yet. They're giving me the breakdown and so on. But we're going to talk about what we have heard thus far. Wherever you're joining us from, welcome. Welcome to you, Barbicians. Welcome to Politics 101. Dreadful times are here. Dreadful times are here. Sometimes, you always want me to butter the thing up, but we can't butter it up. Dreadful times are here. Guyana is at a crucial point. Very crucial point. All the dancing around, you all seen there, it's not accident, When they're rolling out James Bond or James Bond rolling out himself and the president moving through them black community and pulling one or two people once and say, we're going to give you 2 pig. We're going to give you this, we're going to give you that. It's not accidental. This is coordinated, as the dancers would say, choreographed. It's not accident. And I can say it, because plenty of people don't want to say it, the PPP is going after black young people. And they're not interested just in the votes. They're not interested in helping them. They're interested in capturing them. I think a couple of years I used the term slave catcher. The PPP and some of the Indian elites never forgive me for that. And I don't want their forgiveness. Right? This is serious business that's happening in Guyana right now. Serious business is happening in Guyana right now. Right? Good evening to you. Good night to those of you joining us from Europe. Good afternoon to those of you on the west coast of the United States. Still, they're cleaning up there in California. Oh my goodness. What a mess. Out there in the Middle East, the ceasefire is likely to come on stream on Sunday, but between the time earlier this week when they announced that there will be the ceasefire to now, I understand that hundreds of Palestinians have been murdered. What dreadful times we are living in. We understand that the budget got a lot of goodies inside, but goodies in bad places. We understand that the census, Stabrook News carried an item today. They said the census is likely to be 800 and something thousand with a whole set of Venezuelans on it. 3 years, they still can't think the census. Yesterday, the vice president said, well, the opposition, they always want the racial breakdown at the census. And they're always saying that Indian people migrating and the PPP will lose. But they're in for a surprise. He said, so there's a surprise with the census. Yeah, answer. While after 3 years, they still can't announce the census. Are we there for now? It's Friday night. It's Friday night on Politics 101. And let me bring in Dr. Vincent Adams, who's been making the news quite a bit. Dr. Adams, good evening.
Hey, good evening, Dr. Hines, and good evening to our dedicated listeners and audience on Friday nights, because, when you see that we're getting priority on Friday night, we must be, really important to these folks. So we just got to keep, giving them the information.
Doc, you got a PhD, and PhDers got to do research, and then you just got to write up your research, and you got to present your research and defend your research before you get a PhD. PhD don't come. That's the thing, you don't go over the counter and buy it just so.
No.
It got plenty stages.
And they don't just honor you with it.
No, you don't honor you with it. You got to work for it. Well, apparently some people are trying to get their PhD. Some people in the state of Guyana. Because I heard the vice president said yesterday that they have done research on you. Well, finally, Jack, you're going to do a PhD, it seems. And you are going to be the target of the research.
Oh, yeah.
They are doing research on you. The doc, well, what they want with you? You know, I mean, what do they want with you? That they are doing all this. What were you doing? What are you doing to these people that they are doing research on you? Well, we're going to flip this thing tonight. We're going to let you do some research on yourself. Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, answer these chaps who are, as I said, we're in dreadful times. People taking this thing for sport that we are in. This is serious, serious politics that we're in, you know, Doc.
Yeah.
Serious politics. What do you make of the vice president's promise that they are researching you?
Well, here I welcome any my story is an open book, and by the way, I'm proud of it, Dr. Hines. I, like you said, you know, coming from a very humble background, just like you did from the alleys of Christianburg, and you know, later on Albai Stung, and because of the resources and the village that raised me, I was able to come to the United States and worked hard academically and professionally. Like you said, you know, you feel, and you know as well as I, you feel uncomfortable talking about your degrees and accomplishment. But when these things happen, you know, you've got to conquer it with the facts. So yes, you're right. I have a PhD in environmental engineering. I have a master's degree in geological and petroleum engineering, specializing in petroleum reservoir engineering. I have two master's degrees, as a matter of fact, a master's degree in hydrogeology and a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. But then, and you know, of course, I went to the United States and I started working for the U.S. government, and that's where I worked for 30 years, and I moved myself up. Well, before that, I was a senior petroleum engineer with American Oil Company, which is the old Amoco, but now it's British Petroleum, and headed some pioneering work in enhancing oil recovery that are being used throughout the world today. Of course, when I went to the United States Department of Energy, I ascended to the highest level, and they cannot erase this regardless of what they say or try to do. I ascended to the highest level anyone can get in the civilian government. And it says here, by definition, Dr. Hines, by definition, first of all, that level is called a senior executive service employee. It's a core of employees. That core of SES, the government, the total government workforce is over 3 million people, Dr. Hines, over 3 million. That elite SES core, which is the top core that runs the day-to-day operation of the government, it's only 8,000 of us out of that 3 million. So the 8,000 really leads the 3 million, which is about 0.3% of the total workforce. So here it is that this kid from Christianburg, who you know got to the highest level of the civilian government. But here's the other part, Dr. Hines. And this here is in the definition from the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. It says that the SES are the non-political appointees right below the top presidential appointees. So the president comes in, president appoints the secretary and the assistant secretary, and we are right there, right below them. As a matter of fact, we work in parallel with them. They come and they go, but we're the ones who carry on the operations of the government. So that is the highest level. And here's the other thing: by the definition, we are equivalent, and that's in the definition. And there's even a table to show the SESs are equivalent to the generals in the military. The generals, Dr. Hines, we are equivalent to the generals in the military. That's the the equivalency. So he gets there yesterday. So in order to get there, well, you could just imagine. As a matter of fact, I know of only one Guyanese, one other Guyanese that I know. This is a lady that because it's rare to get into those positions. And somebody had introduced me to one Guyanese lady because they heard that she was from Guyana. So they hooked me up with her. I spoke to her on the phone. I can't remember her name, but she was in the Department of Transportation. But besides that, I don't even know of any other West Indian besides Colin Powell. I think Colin Powell came through that as a West Indian. So that is how that group is. Now, this man gets there in the smut, just waddling in smut, got there yesterday and said, well, oh, he is, hey, they raised him up to this high level, and all he did was he managed some sewage project.
As a deputy manager.
As a deputy manager. Now, yes, this man is so, how do you respond to those type of things? And here is what they don't, the same deputy manager, yes, but they don't understand that deputy manager was managing more. The deputy doesn't mind you meet an SES position. You could be a deputy doing the field operations, and the assistant secretaries up at the headquarters doing the politics and stuff. What had happened was I was the head during that was in my final 10 years that I was this SES in my final 10 years. So I was at various sites. When Obama came in, if you remember the stimulus program,
yes,
I was sent to South Carolina to manage that stimulus program for $2 billion. I had to, manage it. Then when I was finished here, I went back to I wanted to stay in the field. I did because I told them the assistant secretary I want to get out of headquarters of Washington. So I went to Ohio. So that was my site in Ohio. So I was the manager of that site in Ohio, which is, and you're the head person representing the government in Ohio. That's where most, we created the most job in the region because that's what the complex does. And this is I'm talking about. You wouldn't believe it. The Department of Energy managed the nuclear weapons complex of the nation. It's not the military. We make the nuclear weapons complex. We keep it and maintain it and hand it over to the military. We do all the research. We're in charge of science. So we manages all the lab. So all of those things, in my state, I was responsible for it. So what happened was when I was about to retire in 2016, 4 months before, they decided to merge the Ohio and Kentucky office. And then, of course, I'm retiring. So they said, well, okay. So I said, well, okay, I want to stay in the field. I could have left and gone someplace else, right? So I said, I wanted to stay in the field. So they decided to say, well, okay, how about if you be the deputy until, and I only had 4 months. So I said, okay, fine. For the two combined side of Kentucky and Ohio. So I went to Kentucky for 4 months as a deputy of that combined, and then I retired. But there's nothing wrong. I may have even stayed on as a deputy. You're still in. It's not a promotion or a demotion. You're an SES, so you don't get a pay increase or a pay decrease. But the deputy has, even as a deputy, there was even more responsibility than what I had even when I had my own operations in Ohio, because you combine the two now. And so this whole thing about, well, a deputy, do they know what a deputy's job as an SES is? So that's the silliness. And then you're going to say that, well, he's a deputy manage a sewage project. Hell, I was proud to be in that position, even though it was only for 4 months. I was proud to be in it, and I might have, because I wanted to stay in the field, I may have stayed on. But which is how we operate, we move around so that you could develop a broad experience. So if there's an emergency to pick me up and say, well, I need for you to go to Alaska because somebody resigned, you can go and handle that operation. So, it's all, how could you stoop so? But here's the other thing. When he was saying this, he knows better. You can tell that just sheepishly, self-consciously, you can tell. Guess what he says twice while he was saying this, Dr. Hines, which told you how this man operates. He was saying, well, I don't know if it's true. How could you say it twice? Well, I don't know if it's true. But you're still saying it in a sheepish way. So, which means that it was malicious. It was a malicious, you know, attack. Yeah, the man said twice. Well, you know what? I don't know if it's true. He said that twice. You know, how could a leader of a country be, you know, getting to this to get in, you know, into the mud like this, and expect people to trust information that you get from him?
Dr. Vincent Adams here, responding to the Vice President's attempt yesterday to minimize his role, his work in the United States Department of Energy. But that too must pass. Dr. Adams, I know that you...
But you know what's so interesting too? He's not only attempting to minimize me. It's just he's attempting to minimize the United States government, because you're insulting the SCSers who run the day-to-day operation of the nation. That's what we do. As I said, we are the civilian generals. That's what is in the definition. So he's not only about me, he's insulting the even the U.S. government structure and how it operates. So it's not only me, it's all of the SCSers.
Yeah. Doc, I was about to say that, you know, you've been following the budget all afternoon, and we have not yet got a figure as to what is the size of the budget. We were getting some rollouts. Now, I know that you are part of the what I call the oil lobby here, doing some good work in holding the government accountable, renegotiation of the contract, etc., etc. And sometimes people get the impression that we are not getting plenty money. You know, the oil lobby is saying that we ought to get more. We ought to renegotiate the contract. But here is a number, and I want you to comment on it. $2.6 billion received in oil revenue and royalties in 2024. Not 2.6 billion Guyana dollars, $2.6 billion US dollars received in 2024. Is that chicken feed money?
Well, it's always it's not chicken feed in terms of the gross number, but it's chicken feed in compared to what we should have been getting.
Right. And so I acknowledge that, but compared to what we used to get before.
Oh, yes. By far, that is the reason why our budget is where we are today, in terms of, you know, we went from what to 1 point, almost tripled or quadrupled in about 4 years. It was because of this. And then remember now that the oil money gave us leverage to go get loans. So it does. No, it's this year is a lot of money. And as a matter of fact, in 2 years, by 2027, it will be doubled with the same formula, because the production rate, predicted production rate, would be in 2027 1.3 million. Right now it's about 650,000. So that's exactly doubled. So if all the prices and everything remain, we're going to be over 5 billion per year.
Right.
But again, and we all know the issue is not even about. It's a lot of money, no question, compared to what we used to get. But how do you spend that money?
That's where I was going with you.
That's right. That's correct.
That's where we're going with you. We are hearing from the budget is $1.382 trillion.
Okay, so it's up by 200 million or so. Yeah.
And you know, by the time they go back for supplementary, because they are going to go back for supplementary.
Sure.
The thing. Now, must we feel nice with all that money in the hands of the PPP?
Oh, Absolute not. Absolutely. Well, when you say must we, you got to define who's we.
Guyanese people in general, including PPP supporters,
Well, no,
because
I'm talking about
although
no,
they won't want to admit it,
the friends, family, and favorites. They're
yes,
more, they're more. But the regular Guyanese people,
yes,
they cannot be, because Dr. Hines, all of this money that we're getting that we've never seen before, and we still have 50% of the people still living in poverty, Dr. Hines. So just starting from there, so we know at least 50% of the people cannot be happy. So that's a good metric. So the simple answer to the question is absolutely no. Um, and then besides that part of it, imagine you're getting this money and you're wasting it. Look what's happening in these projects. You got falling down lantern posts. Look, today I saw on YouTube they're building a new road, Dr. Hines, and they put the lantern posts on the about 2 or 3 feet on the same road that they're, so a car could be driving. You better not go close to the side of the road, or else you run straight into that steel lantern post. But so that's the competence. I even hear heard in South Prineville that somebody was giving the commentary. One of the guys said they're building the 2 lanes coming, 2 lanes going, and what they end up in the middle of the road will be where the middle of the lanes them will be where the lantern posts are going to be. So it does, they're wasting money. We're seeing how the roads are falling apart. So again, besides the people are not getting the what they're what belongs to them, just basic things: food and shelter, food and shelter. That's the basic thing: food, shelter, and education. But if people are not getting that, and then you're seeing it wasting, somebody made an assessment, and I believe it's even more than that, that 50%, at least 50%, somebody said a 60%, I think, of the money that is being spent on infrastructure is being wasted. That's a lot of money, Dr. Hines. When you, I'm curious to see what the infrastructure numbers are going to be. But when you
yes.
have 60% of it going into infrastructure and 60% of that money going into infrastructure, that's a lot of money that can feed the people and provide shelter for them. So people cannot be happy. But the problem is, Dr. Hines, the next part of that, well, okay, you're not happy, hold your government accountable. That's the area that is missing, that people are not holding the government accountable because of the divisive politics that we have in Guyana, and it's it's also being enhanced by the rhetoric, by the divisive rhetoric that you hear coming out of the PPP every minute of the day, like yesterday, for example.
Yes. Guyana recorded overall growth rate of 43.6%. You listen to that. Guyana recorded overall growth rate of 43.6%. Now, economists will tell you, don't poo-poo numbers, because numbers tell a story. You have to get behind the numbers.
Sure.
Sometimes what we do is we say, don't worry the numbers. Well, I've learned from being around economists that you must worry about the numbers, because the numbers do tell something. All
Sure.
right? Is to get behind the numbers. No. For the 3.6% growth cannot be ignored, cannot be poo-poo. Again, when we start to get behind the numbers and start to talk about 43.6% growth, but 50% poverty, 40 to 50%
Yeah.
poverty, 40 to 50% dropout rate in school. Then we begin to the thing begin to unravel in front of our faces. But can we boast of all of this growth for the 3.6% growth? We don't have a breakdown in terms of the oil and the non-oil sectors of the economy, but I am sure I would not be going out of line if I say most of that growth is generated from the oil sector um, of the economy. Um, how do we, in your estimation, how do we translate that growth, that number there, that we are not preparing? How do we translate that growth to development?
Well, and there are two questions you're asking there. First of all, what does that number mean? And like you said, remember where all of this money coming from the oil. That money is going where? Remember, it's Exxon, all
Yeah,
the corporate. So it's not a real reflection. Remember the definition of a GDP is the cost of products and service is within your country. So all of that oil and everything else, when they make the, when they produce the oil, that oil leaves the shore of Guyana. It's not a case where all that money is circulated here. Exxon and
right. I got that. I got
that's
that.
right.
But
So
don't let this government off the hook.
no, I'm
As
not.
much as Exxon is carrying away the hog of it, plenty still here.
No, but here's what I'm getting at. That's why I said it's two questions. The
Yeah.
first thing is they're using the first part as the propaganda machine to let people feel nice. Oh,
Yes.
they're using that as a metric. Well, Guyana is the fastest growing economy and everything else. So now when you see that in the headlines, even though you were not, even though you're hungry and poor, you're believing, well, there's hope. There's something coming. That's the first part of it. And of course, the second part is what we talked about in terms of how long are people going to wait for them to see something out of it, which goes back to the government in terms of how they distribute this money. So it's the number sounds good, but then you cannot how do you translate, which is your question, how do you translate that number into what we're into what we're seeing? And you can't. And it goes back to the how the the inefficiency and the incompetence of this government, and only taking care of a certain section of the population, which is the rich friends and family and cronies of the government, and the other 50% plus, because not only 50%, it's more than 50%. Because remember, those who get in the hog, especially of the infrastructure money, are within maybe 1% of Guyanese, and they're the rich ones, but everybody else is kind of struggling. But that whole thing about the 43%, it's that's what's driving the propaganda and giving people hope. Oh, Guyana is the fastest growing economy. That's the headlines, and everybody believe it. That's the hope factor there, Dr. Hines. That's what people.
Yes, yes, and
That's
I
the
think
hope factor.
so. But I think over the last 3 years or so, Guyanese people have wised up. I mean, you heard the teachers on the street saying, "Don't tell me you can't give me more money."
Yep.
All right. So while I agree with you that it's meant for propaganda, look, we are doing well and so on, it is backfiring them, because when it comes down to the distribution of that money, certain sectors of the workforce are realizing that they are not being part
Participating.
of that,
Yeah.
of that.
Without question. Here's how you can translate it. You're getting 43% growth, but the people are getting 8% of that growth. That's
Yes,
the increase.
yes,
So you're getting
yes.
43%. But on top of that, hold a minute. On top of that, when you look at food prices, look at the inflation. So you're getting hit a double whammy, because inflation is even more than the increases you get. Look, I don't know if you saw that video. It was circulating a couple of days ago with a lady standing up in front of Big Market.
Yes.
3 belanges for $1,000. A little parcel of shallot, I think, was what, $400. 3 belanges for $1,000, Dr. Hines. 3 belanges. So So that's the reality that we're living in. So even a teacher now, the inflation, when the inflation is higher than 8%, and it is, I don't care what numbers they come up with, especially when you get to basics like food. We know that. So even if you get an 8% raise and the inflation is 10%, you're losing money. You People cannot afford to go rent a house in Guyana anymore, Dr. Hines, in Georgetown or any place. So, because the inflation is eating up any little raise that you get. And then when you look at what the poor folks are getting, such as teachers who are making $100,000, they get 10%. That's $10,000. But then you look at the ministers in the government who are making $2 million. Their 10% is worked out to $200,000.
Yeah. And the point I want to hammer home here is that the government is telling workers, public service workers, we can't give more than 8, 9, 10%. We can't do this, we can't do that. But yet we are raking in that kind of money.
43% growth.
Yeah, and that's really the crux of my argument. I don't know all the economic nuances and all of that, but I'm saying that you can, on the one hand, be announcing that, look, 48% growth, so much money coming in from oil, and you telling workers you can't give them more than a pittance. Now, when I hear Tree Ballinger for $1,000, all right, I think it's the IDB or is saying that the average Guyanese, or 50%, 48 to 50% of Guyanese are living below the poverty line, and they're earning $5.50 US dollars
per day.
So you got to work a whole day for buy Tree Ballinger.
That's right.
You understand? Years ago, Clive Thomas used to do a thing called Economics for Everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And that is breaking down the economic.
And that's only one meal. That's only one meal, by the way.
That's right. You won't buy rice yet. You know, and people are telling me when I talk to them in Guyana, they said, well, when you go to the market now, you hustling for buy rice first, right? Then you might fight up a little fry oil, and you won't get to salt yet. You won't get to Ballinger yet. You won't get all of those things yet, because by the time you buy what could give you a balanced meal and so on, the money done.
Yes.
The money done. And so all these big numbers we are hearing here today, we have to read them alongside the reality of the situation. Let's talk about a big number that I'm hearing here now. Gaisuco to get $13.3 billion despite continued dismal performance. I'm reading here from News Source. Talk to me.
Well, one of the things that came out in the early part of his presentation, which made me just laugh, he made a case that the whole agriculture sector has increased. I can't remember the numbers. He said it's increased. And then he caveated by saying, well, okay, it compensated for the 21% loss in the sugar industry. And then the man, these people, there's something else. You know what the guy blamed for it? The guy blamed El Nino. The guy I could not believe it. The guy blamed El Nino. Well, at least they changed the tune. Would you believe that same Jagdi at one time he was blaming the coalition government for the, and I'm not talking about he was blaming them for the Skeldon debacle, not for the whole. I'm not even talking about the Gaisuco thing. He was blaming them for what happened at Skeldon. That's what he was doing, blaming the coalition for the Skeldon fiasco. So that's what it is everything. I'm surprised they're not blaming they haven't found a way to blame the coalition for them lantern posts that fell down at South Ranville, because every day doesn't matter. So now it's El Nino for for the sugar. So it doesn't surprise me. Said I guess he was leading up. He was leading up to this new amount of money there for guys. So what do you say? It's 13 billion.
Yes, 13, let me get the direct figure, $13.3 billion.
How
For
much did
guys.
they have? How much did they have last year? You remember?
No, I can't remember how much they had last year, but I'm sure it's less than what they get in this year. Or this year they get in more upon what they get last year. Now, Gaisuko is important for me because I don't like to compare.
Yeah,
What go on under the coalition and what go on under this
agreed.
one and that and that thing. But on this matter of Gaisuko, I think the coalition is not well then, but even after then, when they were thrown out of office, never made the case, because you can't say that these people wanted to punish Indian people when they came in and they pumped billions of dollars into Gaisuko.
Yep.
They
Yep. No,
pumped
I agree.
billions of dollars into Gaisuko, and so therefore, what the government is doing now with Gaisuko is more political than economics, because I am telling you, and I'm certain, well, we know that government is not going to pump that kind of money into the public public service, for example. I mean, we live in the age of information and technology and so on, and you know that our public service need a lot of upgrading and so on. They are not going to pump that kind of money in upgrading the public service. They are not going to pump that kind of money in areas of the economy that their supporters are not.
Yep.
Now, I am not saying that you don't pump that kind of money into Gaisuko. That's not what I'm saying here.
Yes.
But I want to see other areas of the economy
Yep.
that you pump similar amount of money. And I want you to tell me, having pumped that kind of money into Gaisuko, what you're expecting. What's your outcome? Gaisuko production is going to go where? El Nino will go away next year. You're pointing all this money to Gaisuko. What is your plan?
Absolutely.
What is your outcome? The same thing I will say for the infrastructure thing that they point. I am not saying you ought not to point all that money into infrastructure. But when you tell me 58% of your economy last year, I'm waiting for how much this year, that you point into infrastructure, what are we getting back in return for that money that you are pumping into infrastructure? Yeah. What are we getting back in return for that money that you're spending on Gaisuko? If you are producing sugar at 40 cents a pound and selling it at 12 cents a pound, that 28 cents, who you are subsidizing? Not the buyers of the sugar.
Absolutely.
So, in a sense, what they're doing is twofold. They're knowingly and willingly throwing away money in order to politically keep their supporters.
Without question.
Your thoughts.
Without question, Dr. Hines. So, and on a weekly basis, this is the other thing that I listen to the vice. Well, I can't avoid it, but I hear the vice president saying every week, and it doesn't make any sense. It shows that he has no knowledge of how you put budgets together. His cop out now is that, okay, they said that we shouldn't have spent this amount of money on infrastructure. And I tell him, well, okay, which road would you stop building on? Which bridge would you stop building on? That's not the way budgets are put together. That's not the question. The question is about priorities, Dr. Hines. The question is about priorities. You don't say, well, okay, I'm going to spend X amount of money on infrastructure. That's not how you start. And then somebody can answer the question as to what bridge you stop building. You look at your priorities. Where are the gaps in the economy and the needs of the economy? Come out and say that and he did say that, by the way. It's about priorities. The coalition priorities is to make sure that the poor people live a comfortable life. The priorities of this current government is to make sure that their rich friends and families continue to get richer and richer. That's what the outcomes are showing. So when you say, well, okay, tell me which road for stop building, that's not the question. Is where do you start in terms of priorities? That's where the argument in terms of that's how you build a budget. You could never get everything for everybody. It's impossible. Never get everything for everybody. So you have to prioritize that. You start with your big pie and say, well, okay, here's where, and when you hear 50, Dr. Hines, if I hear that 50% of my people are living in poverty, that will become the priority. You think roads will get their share, but that will become my priority. When I see water, the basic things, when I see water is running black and brown and all types of stuff, that will be my priority. Electricity, the basic thing, a place for people to live. Those are the basic things to make sure people are comfortable. The roads and stuff, they've been living with these roads almost all of their lives. So you move along until you can get more to go into the second phase. But don't tell me, well, tell me which roads I should stop building, and tell me which bridge I should stop building. He's got this thing backward. That's not the way that you build budget. You start with your priorities. And that is the problem we have. That's the problem.
Dr. Adams, when I heard that man with that thing, I become more convinced that these people are socializing perhaps 2 generations of Guyanese to be stupid and ignorant. And because when somebody says, well, you're spending too much on infrastructure, and you answer with that kind of answer, I mean, come on. What kind of nation, especially younger people, you're socializing? I get one of the things that bother me, I hear people who should know better. Poor road, development. And then you go down on the ground and you hear young people repeating that word by development happening. Look, we get the trench.
Yeah, but Dr. Hines, quickly, not Dr. Hines, this was the same man when he was in the opposition said that people cannot eat roads.
That's right.
He said people cannot eat roads.
That's right. You see, and when you tell people that a bridge, which in any case, any government got to look after bridge and look after this and that, and you are telling people that is development, and young people are repeating that nonsense. Nonsense. When I was a boy and you were a boy, anybody could have come and tell me that, look, a patch of road that is development. I remember hearing Wilfred David one night as a little boy, still in high school, maybe in third form. And I remember hearing Wilfred David on the radio saying, you can have growth without development, but you can't have development without growth. I didn't understand anything else he's saying about the economic sense. But that made sense to me.
It makes sense, yes.
And nobody could have come after them and tell me, look, you dig a trench there, there's the development. And these people are getting away with that nonsense.
Yeah.
And you got some big people, some of them, well, yes, I banned some of them. That's why you all have seen some of the troublemakers. If you all find them here, tell me. And I ban them from this program. Because I take pride. Dr. Adams, you take pride. Everybody else takes pride. On despite how bad we bad. The world must not see us as stupid and ignorant people. And so if they're coming here to talk nonsense, you all tell me. I get them off of here. All right? Our aim must be to become developed.
Yep.
We don't have no development in Guyana yet. All right?
Yep.
We have growth. Nobody can run away
Yep.
from that. We just hear that 40%
Yep.
growth.
Yep. On
We see-
paper. On
paper.
Yep.
Development has to start with people.
Yep.
That's where you start your measurement of development, with people.
But Dr. Hines, we're not cutting in again, and we covered this on one of your earlier shows. We use this GDP, but then there are two other metrics that even the UN use, and it's the standard of living metric. It's not about putting numbers in terms of dollars. It's about standard of living metrics. So those are the metrics. Maybe we need to cover it the next time, but those are the metrics that we need to look at. Looking at exactly what we're talking about here. When you're talking about a metric, it's not about a GDP that just slaps some revenues together and call it the value of services and products and services. This here is a standard of living metric that the UN uses. That's what we should be using to really see the picture. That standard of living metric.
Of course. I mean, in my first semester in university, when I came to the United States, eons ago, I remember the professor put in a chart up, and he said, America, United States, is number one in terms of the largest economy in the world, and so on. And then he said, when you come down to the Human Development Index, America dropped to 15.
Yep. No. Yep.
And that was decades ago when I
Yep.
school. And places like Sweden and
That's
Denmark and Canada jump up from 15 to 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yep. And Sweden and Norway and those places, they don't have any kind of natural resources. However, they know how to manage their economy, but they focus on people. Singapore really not no natural resources, but they based on developing. They took their money, their investment, they took it from the oil economy, for example, because they're the Houston of the of that area. They take that money and they invest it in education. That's where they start. Education and it's the human development. That's what makes the huge difference. It's the human development. When I hear Jagdeo, and there again, if you want to talk budget, be honest. Tell us that your priority is to take care of those folks, and you don't care a damn about the poor people. Because he said that. You remember? We've talked about this several times. About 3 times in his press conference, he said all that the opposition wants to do with the money is what? You remember? It's to feed the people. It's to feed the people. He said that at least 3 times in his press conferences. So he's coming out, and then he's coming and asking this question: which road do we stop building when you want us to take the money and put it somewhere? So he just indirectly tells you what his priorities are, and his priorities is not about the poor people. It's about the few that are getting richer.
And of course, he's not going to ask how much more money you want us to give to teachers, how much more money you want us to give to public servants, how much more money you want us to put into equipment in the hospitals. You're asking us which hospital you want us not to build.
Yep.
That's not our problem. Our problem is when you go into the hospital, do you get the kind of medical treatment
That's right
that a developed country is supposed to give to its citizens? Why the hell government ministers are still flying to Trinidad
That's right.
and America
That's
and these places? That is when you know you are moving from growth to development. So we are not going to tell you, well, don't build a hospital here, and don't build. We are saying, what you put it in the hospital?
We got 700 nurses. We got a shortage of 700 nurses. We've got we just got a few hospitals. We got 700. So could you imagine what's going to happen with 12 hospitals?
12 more hospitals. 12 more hospitals. 12 more hospitals. They used to call them white elephant when I was a boy. I don't know what they call them now.
Yeah.
Manik Chan said that our government has worked hard to make education at Guyana Premium University. True or false?
Absolutely. The one thing that they worked hard for, and people have to know what the facts are. You see, they're getting away with these things with the young people. What they worked hard, they didn't even work hard at it, because as soon as they got into office in 1992, they abolished free education. The younger people ought to know, who were not born at that time, they ought to know that it was Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham who declared free education from kindergarten right through university. And that's where people like myself, Dr. Hines, and a lot of them in government, including Jagdeo himself, received that free education until the PPP government got into office and abolished free education. And by abolishing free education, they've denied thousands of poor people like us when we were in that, at that stage of life. They've denied them education. Today they would have been educated, but they couldn't do it like we had the opportunity to obtain that education. So not only abolishing the education, it's the consequences and the damage that they've done to, I'm sure, thousands of Guyanese who never had the opportunity to go to the University of Guyana. So that's what they should be talking about. So don't come back and correct your mistake here and try to cover it, cover it up, shout it in something to say that you work hard to make education free. I mean, that ought to be shameful for you to be. I would have stayed away from even discussing free education rather than bringing it up.
As I've been saying, and you were saying, they're socializing the country. They're socializing people in the country, not to get deep into things, not to get below the surface. And so they throw these things to the average 20-odd-year-old young person who was not around when the PNC, Burnham, implemented free education and laid it out as part of a vision. We were coming out of colonialism. We were coming out of plantations.
Yep.
And the challenge of independence was to turn plantations into nations. If you plant in cane to make sugar for white people in Europe, you don't need a law degree for that.
Yep.
You don't need a high school education for that. You don't need a university education for that. So what Burnham's generation were challenged with is how to transfer us from a plantation to a nation.
Yep.
On the plantation, the work we dead at 25 is equivalent to 80 years old today. All right? Healthcare didn't matter then. Education didn't matter. You don't need to read and write for Chapkin.
Yep.
All right? And so therefore, what Burnham's generation were into is they took stock of the times that we were living in and they implemented policies with clear outcomes.
Yep.
And I saying that as somebody who calls Burnham nasty because he couldn't manage. But people like me feel that he didn't manage power properly. But even as I did that, I benefit from his social policies.
Yep.
Because people like me couldn't, and you look at all of us, you, me, Winston Jordan, this body, that body, and you will see that all of us are products of that policy.
Absolutely.
I could not be running my mouth here now if it hadn't been for education.
Yep.
And if my parents, they have to pay for that education. I probably would have make it halfway.
Yep.
Not the full way.
Yeah.
And so therefore, when one talks to these people today, we are saying you're into the second independence, the second phase of your independence. You get what Burnham never had, which is black gold, plenty money.
Yep. Yep.
What is your vision for the second independence?
Yep.
What are your policies that are consistent with those visions?
And you know what that shows, Dr. Hines? Again, getting back to priorities, Burnham set education as his top priority, not roads. And he could have taken that same money for free education in University of Ghana and build roads. And even those kids today should even be questioning, well, that their parents did not get the opportunity for a university education because of the PPP that abolished it in the 90s. So even those kids, those younger kids of today should understand it. But you're right, we are only talking here because of that free education that we got. So look at the thousands of Hines and Adams and Jordans who have missed out, and what the numbers would have been, many, many more than we're dealing with. Look, when you talk about putting things into context in terms of looking at when those guys, look at in terms of a vision. When I remember in Linden, and we've told this story over and over, there was, the we used to call them staff men, the white folks, the Canadians, they ran the Bauxite Company, and there was a gate that you could not pass. Only the maids and those people who go and live in the quarters downstairs and take care of them. They're the ones who could pass that gate right by the hospital as soon as you pass the hospital. When it was nationalized, and all of the engineers and the staff and the managers left, Burnham had to fill that vacuum with Guyanese. And it was because of that vision of getting us prepared for it that then we started seeing people that look like us, that were natives like us. They started working there. And then we started aspiring that we could be like them. But before that, we had even when I was in high school, I never thought that one day I would even become a staffman. What was our biggest aspiration? To work in the office as a draftsman. That's the highest. Yes. But then when after nationalization, and you see, wait a minute, look, there's the engineers that are black, Clarence London and those type of folks. You remember some of these names, and that was when I said, wait a minute, we could be like them. But again, it's that big vision that you're talking about, Dr. Hines. That
big vision that I'm talking about. Tyron Moses. Tyron, your father's Bumble, based on what you're saying. You can get in touch. Ask your Uncle Brian for my particulars.
With Bumble, by Bumble, who been in Bumble used to play in the band there. Bumble.
And not that Bumble. It's a Bumble from We Village, the box.
Oh, okay, okay.
Moses. So by saying that, is he daddy? If Bumble is your father, Edwin Moses Jr. Yes, your father was Edwin Moses. They used to call him Muchi. You bend low when he going for turning the yard with the car. You bend low. You bend low when you're turning.
You sound like a race car driver.
That man was a character. Oh Jesus! And thing. So let your Uncle Brian give you my particulars, and you'll get in touch with me, Tyron, and we'll talk there. Yes. And so on. And welcome to the program. Welcome to the program. Who say young people not on the program? Young people on the program too, Doctor, talk to us quickly about the government says reviewing Exxon application for increasing production in Lisa.
Yeah, you see that time you ask all your why. You ask all your why the heck are they coming after you? Well, because you can see why. Because I guess I'm one of the very few who could bring the facts, and they confuse most of the people. But people like myself are a threat to them, and that's okay. We know what the truth is. But anyway, and I'm by the way, I'm absolutely qualified to speak on these subjects, so they can say whatever they want. But here's the problem, Dr. Hine. It's the same thing that happened with the Lisa One project. It's operating illegally, and let me tell you why. You remember what they're doing when the coalition. I ain't got problem. None of us have problems, Dr. Hines, in producing as much as you can produce, but you've got to do it within the confines of safety and the regulations and the law. Today, as a matter of fact, today I hear I couldn't believe that the finance minister said that the coalition didn't have any regulatory framework or legal framework to operate the oil industry. Well, let me remind him with the Lisa One, the permit says, Dr. Hines, that the safe operating limit in the environmental impact assessment, which is the Bible, which is the most sacred document. Those documents, the EIA in some cases take years to put together because you get all the input from all the exports. And when they put something in there, it becomes sacred because you got all the reviews. It says it shall not exceed, the safety limit shall not exceed 120,000 barrels per day. Do you know that they complied even, and just to make sure you don't get to that 120 in that same EIA, you would normally cut it back to 20% and establish your internal control so you cannot get close to that 120. Because in the United States, if you hit that 120, you're out of business. So we put it also in the EIA where the operating limit should be 100,000 barrels per day. Do you know any coalition left office where you know what they're operating at today, Dr. Hines? 165,000 barrels per day. 65% more than they're supposed to be operating. So that's what they want to do here through greed. Because the old EIA says one thing, and that's what it was designed for, Dr. Hines. That's what it was designed for. So the old operating, give it one limit, but now they want to increase it. But here's why it's illegal. The EIA is a legal document in the permit that they sign, which is the legal document as prescribed in the EPA Act. The permit that they signed up to, all of the permits says that you must comply with the EIA. So now, if you look at Lisa One, for example, Dr. Hine, this is how we operate in this country. You tell them a legal framework. If you look at the EIA today, it says the safe operating limit is 120. It says the operating limit is 100,000 barrels per day. But you're operating at 165,000 barrels per day, which means you're violating the law that you're supposed to be complying with without changing. How could you have one document saying here, but then you're doing something else totally different? That's illegal. So the same thing they want to come and do, instead of going back and going through the process of changing the EIA, they're just, saying here, you know what, this is what we want to do, and we're going to go above the design limit and the safe operating limit. So that is what this is about, and people have to understand what it is and what it means. It's illegal, it's unsafe, and when you risk an accident, you get an oil spill. On top of that, we have nothing to cover an oil spill because they've joined with Exxon to go against a parent company guarantee to cover an oil spill. That could bankrupt the nation. Nobody's Dr. Hines, and we have to make this very clear. I am one of those who say forever that we should be producing as fast as possible. However, you have to do it safely and environmentally soundly. That's all we ask. But you cannot violate the law when the safety framework calls for certain restrictions or defines that envelope, but you don't care because of greed. That is what is going, and that would not have been happening under the coalition because we already know what was happening under the coalition. They know it, but that's what we're dealing with here. It's the irresponsible behavior of this government. That's what we're dealing with.
After all the jumping around and all the slandering and all the bad mindedness the court threw out the charges
Yep.
against Patterson, David Patterson,
Yep.
your comrade,
Yep.
who the thief and this and defraud. But it's not that the court just throw the case because the court won't throw it. They couldn't lead evidence.
Nope. Nope.
So this is the thing.
Yep.
They do it to Jordan. They do it
Yep.
to Patterson. They're doing it to them people in court now with this thing here. They're just charging you, scandaling you, as we would say in the villages,
Yep.
the communities, scandaling your name.
Yep. Yep.
And they have no interest in how the case come out and so on.
Nope. Nope.
Because by the time they are
It's the harassment. It's
it's
harassment. It's harassment.
harass you. So after 4 years, Patterson found not guilty, not through any trial. There wasn't even a trial.
Yep.
But it's 4 years of I hope he's suing them.
Yep. I
hope I hope he's suing them. I hope you see the thing is not their money they got paid out.
That's I always said that's the catch right there.
Yes.
That's the problem. That is the problem. If it was their personal liability, you wouldn't have been hearing. And let me tell you, the same thing is gonna happen. Do you see this whole thing about with the election thing? It's the same thing. They can't up to now. They can't really, it's gonna. Everybody's gonna be, be freed of all those charges. You watch it,
Dr. Adams. The lawless
Yep.
way in which these people are going after young black people
Yes.
in our villages.
Yep.
You see, as I say over and over again, and as you would say, people have a right to belong to which party they want to belong.
Absolutely.
When we were growing up, there was always the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 people in all them black communities who was PPP. Some of them like PPP for his communist thing and his socialism and so on. But they were PPP, and they were bona fide PPP.
Absolutely. Yep.
But the way in which this PPP is going after young black people, and using trinkets and little thing, it pains me as a proud black man.
I too. It
really,
does,
and I just want to get your thoughts on it, because I don't think the problem is as deep seated as the PPP make it out to be, because they're fighting a propaganda war.
It is.
And they roll out James Bond and roll out this body and so on. It's a propaganda war because they're trying to give you the impression they are 1,000 James Bond, right? Now, I or James, who I know well, and who I consider to be my partner, James is my partner.
Yep.
And I know James feel about the PNC. Only a week or so before he was in Freddie Kissoon's show and fighting Freddie Kissoon them down, who were trying to demonize the PNC.
I saw that show. I saw that show.
And then 1 week later, here he is, I giving you a second term. Thing not regularly, right? Now, I don't know what James is going through or what they're putting him through or what he's going through, and what that only James can answer that. And so my focus here is not on James Bond.
Yeah.
My focus here is what you are using the James Bond moment to achieve. And that is to say to young black people that whatever James Bond is getting in return for this endorsement, I don't know what he's getting. I don't know what he's getting. But to the average young people, they're asking them what James Bond's getting.
Yeah.
And what the PPP is saying, whatever he getting, you all can get to.
Yep.
And I think that is the kind of nastiness, because what you're doing is that you are seeking to destroy a race of people. You're treating people who fought their way out of bondage, servitude. In 2025, you are using their own money to say to them, second-class citizenship. It's better. It's better you come in as a second-class citizen under the PPP than to stay as a first-class citizen under the PNC and whoever else party you may be in the opposition. Because you're first-class citizen over there, but you won't get money, a small piece. Come over here, we're going to give you a little freck for second-class citizenship.
Yep. It starts with, and I don't know if it's an overall strategy, but it starts with making life so miserable.
Yes.
That these young black kids, they get so desperate that they have no choice. You know, they gotta live. It's either they go into this thief and steal and rob, and then they go to jail, or they somehow get a little freck here and there, and then they come over. And then if you do that, Dr. Hines, and me, you know, we're our trial mates, and then I see that, oh shucks, boy, David getting stuff, David, you know, doing good. Guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna want to do the same thing. So it's about the vulnerable. It's about the vulnerable that are being targeted. And so I'm even beyond James Bond, because I don't know, you know, whatever.
I'm saying this is not about James.
Yeah, it is not about him.
It's not about James.
It's about the vulnerable in whatever form or fashion it comes. It's about the vulnerable, because I know for sure specific folks who move over because of that situation that they were in. And then when people see that they're doing well, getting a good job, or getting, you know, doing things that they were only dreaming about, then they move over also. And then they would try to influence, because now they want to form, you know, they want to get this support coming with them. You know, they don't want to be looked at as just a sellout or something. So they're going to try to get as many of their friends to come and join. But I don't know if that's the strategy, but that's what is happening right now. That's what's happening.
Doctor, years ago, when the coalition had just taken power, I ran into a certain leader at cricket. And as usual, he stopped, they gaff and so on. So he was telling me that a certain businessman in Georgetown asked to join the PPP. And he wanted assurances that if the PPP win, he's going to turn a minister. And if they lose, he's going to become a parliamentarian. And this PPP big leader, he said, David, I told him that I can't guarantee no parliamentarian thing. I can't guarantee a minister. But I can guarantee one thing. Black people going to start buying soup. So you can move back. These chaps know that the confusion that they are causing, they know.
Yep.
Poor James. They might tell me James' place empty the other night after he go
hunting. It's a sad state of affairs.
The man tell me the thing, me belly want bust with laugh. He said, David, I tell him one thing I can guarantee, black people gonna stop by his soup, so I know who's talking about. And black people had stopped for years buying the soup. That's a place, midday where you go there, you couldn't find.
You're telling me? Yeah.
After time, you can drive up to the place and you get parking and so on. I am telling that story to say that these PPP leaders know that they're destroying black people's image among their brothers and sisters in their villages and their communities, right?
But you know, Dr. Hine, but you see, the thing is, the problem is, well, from our perspective, is that they're allowed to do that because now they've got the money to do it. You see, long time you could have promised, but now they've got the cash. They can dole out. They've got the cash. They can provide the opportunity, and that's what's, you know, festering. That is why this thing will it's going to be difficult. And they're taking advantage of the fact that they've got the money, and they know that the people are going to follow it in the desperate need. So that's the difference between now and long time. That's the difference between now and long time. They've got the resources to attract.
I know that they don't believe that I is a racist because I just stand up for black people and I just tell black people as it is. And I want them to know that they gotta fight me on this issue. They gotta fight me on this issue. All right? The advantage that they are taking on these vulnerable young people as a black man, proud black man, I am not prepared to let it go just like that. I am telling you, I rather lose some votes in order to keep black dignity intact. Because that's what they're playing with here.
Yeah.
They're playing with black people's dignity. They got people that I know, I grew up with, come to me and say, man, Twilly, man, you know I's a scamp. Yes, I know you're a scamp. you know where my loyalty there, I say yes and no. But it's a hustler depon.
It's a hustle, yeah. Yep.
The conversation can go further because I cannot be seen to encouraging hustling. But
That's
I'm saying
right.
here's the logic, right? Here's the logic that you're dealing with here, right? There's some of our people depend on hustle. And they know it's a hustle they depend, right? And they're taking advantage of that. And then they roll these people out in the public.
Yep.
In the public. To say, you know, there are 2,000, 3,000 more of these people. I am heartened to know that they're not thousands of them. But I have to be frank that our people are vulnerable. I put Gary's comments on the screen because I think we leaders on this side of the aisle have to take some responsibility.
Sure.
We have to take some responsibility. This nonsense about what one tide lifts all, our black leaders have to get off that nonsense. Because this gap that the PPP is creating between social groups and ethnic groups, that gap is only going to be closed if we close it.
Yeah.
Because the PPP is benefiting from it. And we have to understand that in a multi-ethnic society, where there are inequities, in a society of different classes of people, where there's social inequities, that we have to be real about these things. And on the opposition side, I am telling you, we have not been real.
Yep.
We have not been real. And we got to start being real. I'm going to be out there fighting like a tiger for them to re-elect us to office. But my conditions, and I'm saying this to my brother leaders, I'm saying it here and I'm going to say it in private to them. My condition for fighting is that when you get power, you look after these people and don't allow them to be vulnerable.
I agree.
That they got to go up on a hustle when you leave office. When you leave office, you must leave them looking pretty. When the PPP leaves office, its supporters are all going to be looking pretty. There may be different levels of pretty. Some going to be less pretty than others, but they're going to be pretty. And we black leaders have to stop this nonsense. There must be a way, and there is a way to look after your country and look after your supporters at the same time. My problem with the PPP, Jagdio said, well, what's wrong with PPP people getting contract?
Yeah.
But here's what's wrong with it. It's not that they're getting contract. It's that they are getting contract exclusively.
Yep.
And others not getting it. So my problem is not the PPP looking after its supporters. It's that you must look after your supporters, but not discriminate against those who are not your supporters. And I would not be part of any operation that's going to be discriminating against other people in order to make my people right. I'm going to make my people right without discriminating against other people. And so I am throwing down the gauntlet here tonight. That I'm going to be fighting like a tiger to get us back into government. But if we're going back there to do the same shit that we did before, you all tell me now, let me step out it. Your closing thoughts, my brother.
Let me just a follow-up on what you just said here in a very passionate way. To give you some tangible examples. I remember growing up as a little boy. Strong advocacy was made to set up a UG mining campus in Linden, which was the logical place for that to happen. This was under the PNC government. Never happened. Do you know what the PPP did as soon as they get into office in 1992, right after that? They established a UG campus at WIM. Do you know what they just did here within the last year? Oil and gas is the biggest thing. Guess where they set up this big oil and gas training school? Port Morant. But which is exactly what you were saying. You know, what is exactly what, and we're not saying to discriminate. We're saying we must close that gap. We have to close that gap. And that's the way that is the way why policies are being made within the US government. You see, people talk about affirmative action. They do not even understand what affirmative action means. It's to close that historical gap. That's what it means. It's not treating anybody unfairly. It's making sure that those who did not have the opportunity, it's about giving people the opportunity who are qualified to get those opportunities. That's what it is. But when you hear the implications that, well, you know, people are advocating for racial bias, that's absolute nonsense. It is nonsense.
It is nonsense, and it makes your work so difficult. It makes your work so difficult. You know, yeah. I mean, people come up to me in my village all the time and say, "Man, you know, look how they treat you when they had power before. Look how they treat you. They ever give you anything for come and share out in boxing and so on?" And I have to tell them, but no. And I have to make the argument, but it's not about me. And they tell me, but it is about you. Because if they treat you bad, what are they going to do with we? And so on. Black people are not stupid. They're not stupid. They know what's going on. And I think they're going to keep faith with us, but it makes our job harder.
Yep.
It makes our job harder. And we have to have the conviction that this is what we are going to do. I always make the point. All right? My mentor, Kwayana, he was a race man in the sense that he stood up for black people when they needed defense. And when power came, he played some pivotal roles in the economy. He was in charge of a GMC. Under his charge in the GMC, black people were able to get in to the agricultural economy in cash crops and poultry and cattle and so on. GMC give them money to buy the thing, and they pay back GMC. GMC find market for them. All right? So it was not just about talking race. It's about when you got power in your hand, what you are going to do for these race people. All right? The Kwa Bank, he was on the board that helped to form the Kwa Bank. And I can go on in areas of the economy. And all of this was when he and Burnham were together.
Right.
And what that says to us is that unity, this thing that only one leader or one set, all of us as African Guyanese leaders have to come and put our heads together. And because we cannot have a peaceful society.
No.
When one race is so vulnerable. And black people are so vulnerable. I am not saying that sections of the Indian community are not vulnerable. They are. But it's a different kind of vulnerability. It's a different kind of vulnerability. And I think we have to recognize that. And we have to get off this nonsense of sweeping race under the carpet. Jagdeo is not sweeping race under the carpet. He complained, he said, well, we supporters game in the system. They come to me, they ask me. They go to 8 other ministers, they ask 8 other ministers. All right?
No.
Well, if you set up the kind of system, of course your supporters gonna game the system. All right?
Yeah.
And I don't think Jagdeo mind them game in the system.
Yeah.
It is just that they get called out and he had to admit. He had to admit that his supporters. But he said, I come to Freedom House. They just come and knock at me gate. And he looks after them. And he says,
Yeah.
I have no apology. I have no apology for looking after our supporters. And I
Yeah.
say, I agree with you. But you must have an apology for looking after your supporters by discriminating against those who are not your supporters.
Yep.
That is what you need to apologize for.
Yep. No. You see, and I remember many years ago, and I was still working for years ago, a couple, even might be 2 decades or so ago, and I kept that quote, and I can't remember it was when, but it was, and I can't even remember the U.S. ambassador, and I'm sure I've got it someplace. The U.S. ambassador said that Guyana will never raise to satisfy its potential for becoming a great country unless unless the racial divide is healed. A U.S. ambassador said that, and I've got the quote someplace. But that's a fact. But what's happening? That divide is being widened by this administration. Now you tell me, and you see that census, and he himself, yes, he brushed it aside.
Yes.
But you're right. Even the Indian people are leaving this country. Those that belong to it, because it's not only about race, it's also about class. You see, it's about class. So unless we can heal that racial divide, we will never, I don't care how much money we make from the oil, we will never become a great country. You cannot just divide the country and I wouldn't even say have 5% get all of the wealth, while 95% are just struggling. And the biggest struggle is in the bottom 50%. That includes Indians and blacks. And of course, our Amerindians brothers and sisters, they're struggling just as bad as everybody. So just one set of people who are enjoying the sweet of the God-given wealth that that the country has been blessed with. And that has to be, and you're absolutely correct, there has to be some putting the heads together. And I think I don't think that we did good enough under the coalition. And I mean, I've got to admit, I don't think that we were kind of busy fixing stuff that we did not really look at the other social aspect of it.
Yes.
And because we were busy building roads and doing other stuff.
Out of office for 20-something years.
For 23 years, that's right.
You're trying to get your marbles together, and I'm not saying here that there were not programs and things that were put there that benefited black people. Most of it indirectly rather than directly, and so on. And I am prepared to defend the coalition in that regard. I've always said, not Burnham, not Jagan. Under David Granger, Guyana enjoyed its best profile when it comes to human rights.
Yep, without question.
And Granger is my favorite leader. But that's a fact. That's a fact that nobody was assassinated under Granger. Granger bent over backwards in order to accommodate the other side. When the private sector asked Jagdeo the other day, look, boss, this place might go up in violence if we can get it right. And what was your answer? Well, we PPP and doing violence, but in summary, he's prepared to use the state
Yes.
to put down. So you are going to an election where the rules are in your favor, and you are saying that when people push back against it, you're prepared to use the force of the state.
Yep.
Granger never used the force of the state against them policemen and women who they were beating up and chasing down the road at Bath and thing. Granger ordered them not to walk around with gun.
Yep.
If he was such a bad demonic gangster, he would have tell them, gun, take your gun. And when they come for chase, you shoot down. He didn't do that. Jack Joe said that he's prepared to do that. And so I'm saying that to say the coalition government was not useless. It wasn't a useless government.
No.
They got things done. And black people know it. Black people know it. They know it. But as usual, when you're in a place like Guyana, you are comparing with your neighbor.
Yeah.
And it's when the comparison is made, there is where the coalition does look bad.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're saying, look what the man over there doing for he people them. And they're comparing. So they know what the coalition did that benefited black people. Right? But it's the comparison that is being made.
Yeah.
I rather my people get $1 million per family, per household, than $100,000 for a voter. And the PPP is now taking that registration for the $100,000 they pay you all for. You guys pay you all to get an alternative voters list. And when they compare the list that they generate for the cash grant to the list that the registration that is sitting down there in the Bureau of Statistics, they're shit in their pants.
Yeah.
And he said that, Clive Thomas said the first day, he said, what you're giving is not to each citizen, not to each adult. You're giving it to each voter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we are saying never again, because we had a chance to put our copyright on that cash transfer.
Yeah.
We had a chance to take it to Parliament when we had a majority and put it into law. And we engaged in a lot of masturbation. And we didn't do it. And today the PPP take it and bastardizing it, whoring it around, and so on, that we can't even look at it and say it's we thing anymore. Because I don't want to own what you're doing there, because that is not me thing. That's not the thing I was talking about.
Yep.
Never again must we, when we have power in our hands and we have an idea that is going to benefit poor people, including our supporters, must we not take advantage and leave power for another man to come and take it and to use it against us. They're using the cash grant idea against us.
Yep.
All right? So that is what I mean. So I agree with you. The coalition did their best in the circumstances. They, however, omitted certain variables. And as we go forward, we will encounter power again. And we got to put all the variables on the table.
Yep.
We have to put all the variables on the table. When I was at the Chronicle with what's his name? Lincoln. I used to write the Sunday editorial and write my Sunday column. My Sunday editorial would praise the government. And my column, if I feel that something the government did wrong, I would criticize the government there. I wasn't trying to bring the government down.
Yeah.
Because I was playing both roles. And what I wanted to do, along with Lincoln, was to turn the Chronicle from being just a party rag and make the Chronicle a kind of BBC, where you support the government, but you also encourage some critical views. And the critical views weren't coming from two men who hate you. It's two men who love you.
Yep.
But the knocker we have, right? The knocker we have. And but some people don't forget that. They might tell me that every day. David, you see what they did to you and so on. I think I'm gonna tell them, man, about Rida. And I am prepared to do that again. To fight for us to get back in office again and think. But I'm saying if we're gonna go back and ignore certain things, are you telling me no? Let me come off the bus. Doctor, you get the last word.
Well, no, I just endorse what you say, but we've got to this year is going to be an interesting year, but it's we got to pay attention to these younger folks in terms of what we talked about here tonight and what's happening to them. They're being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
They're very vulnerable, and I don't know. It takes politicians like yourself to really get to them. We gotta hit these villages, Dr. Hines. We gotta hit these villages and get these bottom house meetings or whatever it is to get these young kids let them understand what the truth is and don't be bought so cheaply. We playing a long game here.
Yeah, Doctor, I for democracy, I for fairness, I for justice, I for all the lovely things that would make our country a better country. But I think we got to get a little bit of nastiness. And by nastiness, if the other side is scowling, scowl back.
Yeah.
We cannot be the ones who are nice all the time because the other side is not nice. You understand?
Yeah.
We have to have a tinge of meanness.
Yep.
In this situation that we are dealing with. And we got to go, as you say, into those communities and tell those young black people as it is. As it is.
Yep.
I don't blame the young people. I'm not blaming them. They are victims. They are victims.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
But here, they're my son, my daughter, my nephew, my nieces, my grandpicnic. Yeah? They are them. And I still got to love them up. And in this time, the love has to be a certain kind of meanness. That is, you got to go out there and you got to tell them about the mean agenda that they are not going to see now they're in their 20s.
Yep.
But by the time they get to the 30s and the 40s, when the shit sinks in, then they're going to say, oh God, why you didn't tell me 10 years ago what we were getting into?
Yeah.
But I prepare to go in and tell you all no. And I'm not going to be nice about it. You understand what I mean? Otherwise than that, I'm a nice person. But when it comes to tearing down the dignity of my people that we have spent 100 and odd years since the emancipation, trying to build up that dignity that they attempted to tear away during slavery. And then these people are coming now in order to shove we head down in the latrine. I cannot be nice. We have to be mean about it. Yep. And there's some mean things I can't say here on air, but I'm prepared to say it when I meet with black people one-on-one.
Yep.
I got.
All right. Nice.
Next week, my brother.
All right, good. Sunday.
Oh yes, I just Sunday. On Sunday, big things are going.
We got a few days. We see what happened with Pakistan there.
Yeah. But you see how the thing backfire? They prepare wicked for spin. And...
Here, but I can tell you what. I like what I see because you saw the ball bouncing and turning already.
But you remember what them chap used to say, Olden and them banner used to tell you? Don't care what wicket you prepare.
That's right.
We going with the bowlers, we going with
That's right. We go with strength.
And you saw the skill of Jaden Seals.
He is really improved.
He's
He's
a
really come
spinner's
up.
wicket. He's a spinner's wicket, but he's a superior talent. I would have liked to see Roach on that track.
Yes, no, I agree. Did you hear? And if you heard the interview, what I heard him say is the discipline of keeping that length.
There you go.
There's the discipline. He said that's all, is that control. You and as a batsman, I knew if you keeping that ball there all the time, as a batsman, you gotta have a really focused discipline to not make one mistake. All it takes is just one mistake. You lose a little concentration. But if you stick that ball right there, it could cause, it's the batsman who got to make the mistake.
I wonder what them chap who playing Barber Green cricket cross the world, and it's Barber Green cricket because they're not even playing hard court. They're not playing white cup. They don't even go to case cup.
Yeah.
Them thing what they're playing is below even hard court and white cup.
I don't look at them things, I don't look at them. If I turn on my TV and I see it, I might spend a few minutes, but I don't. I
don't look at them. I go on last night on Willow for watch a test match. Mr. I've been from Willow for a long time because what happened Willow is them Barber Green cricket, man.
Yeah, I just switch out because what had happened was the rain. Yeah. So every time I'd switch and them match still on, I would switch over. As a matter of fact, I caught the game late because by the time I sleep, and when I wake up, and I think that it was already like 60 something for 4.
Yeah.
I lost the early part.
Yeah. All right, let's see what tonight brings, and
right.
We'll have quite a bit to talk about on Sunday.
Definitely. Take care, man.
Thank you, my brother. And to you, the audience, I know a little winding up tonight and so on and things. But this is something dear to my heart. Dear to my heart. All right? Because I was brought up a certain way. At the personal level, but at the political level. And I never, ever doubted my dignity as a black person. It was never an issue for me. I never had to argue with anybody about how black or how less black I am. Thank God for some of the mentors, chief among them, E.U.C. Kwayana, who I can't even remember ever using the word black pride. I can't remember E.U.C. ever talk about black pride. But when you watch it, you see black pride. And so when I watch today what this PPP is doing to black dignity and black pride, and the way in which our young people are so vulnerable to it, I have to put some gas in my tank and start over again. And I'm prepared to do that, as I say tonight. Whether you all tell me they're in a little party or a non-party or a defunct party, wherever it is, I taken up that fight. I taken that fight up because I do not want to be remembered as a black leader who stood by when black people were being plundered and did nothing about it because I want to win 2 votes. I do not want to be remembered as that. I want to be remembered as someone when black people up against it, go in the midst and teach them how together we can fight back that shit. And the only way we're going to beat it is fighting it back. Talk off. Left 3/4. Again.